Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 4 from Seattle. Let's watch. Let's see what happens. See what comes out of my face as I watch.
I'm gonna show you. When it came to band, I was told that, hey, you know, your lips are perfect to play flute. And I saw flute as like this girly instrument, and I really wanted to play drums. So who was gonna be put on the drum line? I was.
My wife had the exact same experience, but she didn't actually play the drums. She was forced to play the flute, and she didn't want to play flute. She wanted to play the drums. And I think the way my wife tells the story is that the guy who was gatekeeping asked her to play the drums with pencils or something. And so she was like, okay. And he says, oh yeah, you don't really have what it takes. Obviously, when you have all the girls playing flute and all the guys are playing trumpet and drums, sexism obviously plays a role, whether unconsciously or consciously. So yeah, that has to stop. That shit has to stop. People need to let kids do what they, the thing I always just wonder is, what is it to you? Let's say that this person shows signs that they are going to be a terrible drummer. Who cares? They're a kid. Let them decide. Maybe they'll learn. I'm not very good at drums. I think I want to try something else. Let them see. Plus, how would you know if someone has the ability to play drums before they played the drums? How would you possibly understand? And hear that the person that was gatekeeping for her, said, you have the lips of someone who plays flute? What does that mean? I mean,
And so my senior year, we were the best freaking band in the nation.
And for myself, when I went through that, I coincidentally wanted to play an instrument that was for boys. It was trumpet. There were only boys who played trumpet. And you just think like all the associations that we have in our society, particularly in the past, but still around gender and around expectations. And of course, boys are strong and obnoxious and loud. And so drums and trumpet and trombone and saxophone, that's for boys. But then girls are sweet and small and fragile and more pretty. And so they play the clarinet and the flute.
Satisfaction that you get from people doubting you.
Yeah.
And for the effing record, my wife would have been an excellent drummer. In fact, I like to play drums. I like to play a lot of instruments. The drummer in my band actually left his drums at my house, and I've been trying to get my wife, over the years, I've been trying to get my wife to actually play the drums. She has impeccable rhythm. She is a dancer. She's a tap dancer. And well, I don't know if she would call herself a tap dancer, but she took tap lessons when she was a kid, but also when she was an adult, and she's very, very good at that. And you have to be very good with rhythm. My wife would have been a good drummer, and I'm still trying to make her into a drummer, because then we could have a band together.
We literally don't have electricity. It kind of turned me into like a really quiet, super introverted kid. I didn't really have any friends in high school. Didn't really do anything other than draw. I started designing shoes for fun. I made an Instagram page and started posting my work.
Okay, so we're learning a bit about Brett's backstory, that he grew up with some struggles. Sounds like at least there was a time of poverty, if not his entire childhood. And he was ashamed of that. Couldn't have people over to his house because he was ashamed of that. And he didn't have any friends in high school, introverted, and decided to get into drawing, something that he could do by himself. So we're learning about his backstory.
Workup. I got a DM. That DM led into a job opportunity. And then I was there for a year before a recruiter from Nike hit me up. Then in 3 years, I've gone from no footwear industry to a director at the biggest footwear company.
So it's just a guess. I was saying in an earlier video that I heard, and I don't know if it's true, that they couldn't find enough people in Seattle to be on the show. And so they had to extend their radius to Portland. Portland is where Nike, I'm guessing he's one of the individuals that's actually from Portland.
Like try to further you in any other like connection, but how do you feel about Amber?
I think she's like a super, super great person, like with a lot of like really good character and like really good values. We have so many interests in common. Our perspectives and all of that seem to kind of align.
Okay, I'm confused. So Mike and Paul are in the pods, and Micah asks Paul, what do you think about Amber? And at first it seems like Micah is saying, I think Amber wants to be with you. And so you shouldn't be with me, you should be with Amber. So then Paul is now talking about Amber. So I'm curious as to what's happening here.
Line?
Yeah. Whatever. You're only supposed to be talking to me.
Am
Duh.
I? Let's ask another question.
Would you?
Oh, okay. So I think what Micah is communicating is that she wants to be Paul's number one pick. Is that what I'm understanding? And she is curious. She knows that maybe Paul and Amber are having a thing, and so she's like, what do you... I don't know, it's an interesting strategy. You would hope that Micah would just say, hey, full disclosure, I heard that you and Amber are having a thing, but I just have to say, I think you and I would be a better couple, or whatever. Well, I don't know. Or just, hey, you're my number one. I wish I was your number one. To get into direct competition, to downplay. I don't know what she meant by that. Yeah, whatever. I mean, she could have been playful, like, oh, okay, wow. Sounds like you really respect and like Amber, so whatever, being sarcastic in a jokey way, like, oh, woe is me. Or is it actually trying to be a jerk? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know, like this is so random, but would you want to know when you're going to die?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because like imagine if it was like you're going to die in like 4 weeks.
You and I just wouldn't get out of bed for 4 weeks.
Yeah, is that what we would do?
Yeah.
Is that how we'd spend the last?
I noticed that Paul has a pretty interesting, noticeable strategy when it comes to the pods. And I don't know if they're just editing it this way so it highlights it, or if other people are doing this as well and they don't edit it in. But he very overtly, very quickly will amp up his language with lots of people. I didn't show all the different moments. He would say things like, right off the bat, we should get married. There's a sexual flirting and there's also a marriage flirting that he would do very, very quickly, seemingly indiscriminately, at least in the beginning. Maybe he's more discriminate now that he's starting to zero in on a few different individuals, but I don't know, it's interesting. It makes me wonder if that works. It could be innocent. It could also be a game, a manipulation. It could also be a form of love bombing inadvertently or otherwise. I don't know, obviously. We can't tell, but I just wanted to observe that.
Last 4 weeks?
Yeah, napping.
Just napping, jumping on the bed, pillow fights.
Exactly. Normal stuff. Honestly, I kind of feel like the past 3 years for me have gone by so quickly.
And another thing to know for everyone is that salespeople will actually use this technique to try to manipulate you to buy something. There will be questions or things that they will say to you that will get you to visualize yourself having already purchased the item. So if it's a car, they might say something like, can you see yourself in this car? Or, wow, that's a really great looking car. It really matches your personality. It puts this image in your head of you already having the thing. And that is a factor in motivating people to actually take an action. So if you are dating someone and you suggest that, yeah, well, when we're married, so you're making a joke, it's obvious because you just met the person, but you're inserting an image into the person's head. They're forced to envision like, oh, okay, we're married just for even a split second. Of course, you can't manipulate someone to marry you. By the way, there was that leopard print guy that we're not seeing much of. I'm quite sure that he's not going to pass to the next phase because he seems like he's not taking it seriously. The other possibility, I've been wondering what's wrong with the leopard print guy. There's nothing wrong with him wanting to wear leopard print, but it's the noticeable thing that he talked about. And there were a number of other little things that he was saying, and I don't know, but there is an echo chamber on the internet, the incels, the MGTOW people, the pickup artist community, the red pill people, who will propagate these ideas, very destructive, misogynistic, very horrible ideas, ridiculous, unscientific ideas. And one of the ideas that they were sure worked all the time was that if you put a woman down, then it compels her to please you. So I don't know if he was engaging in that. Again, I can't tell. There's some explanation as to what would motivate his relentless, odd, and off-putting and insulting behavior. I mean, he literally asked someone, have you ever killed someone before? I don't know if he thinks of himself as a funny person or he's doing this echo chamber incel activity. He thinks that's what's going to work for him. And yeah, so it's ridiculous.
Living more just in general.
I like it. I like it.
Being more present, for sure. It's kind of cheesy, but like,
Yeah.
but it's true. Like,
I feel like finding like beauty in like every day
oh my gosh.
and like
no-
little things, like romanticizing
Yeah.
like my life.
Oh my gosh. We're like literally on the same page with that.
I will say that we don't have any standout people yet. We don't have any Shakes or Coles or Shanes, right? There's been, at least to my eyes, there's been no one emerging that is noticeably provocative, aside from the leopard print guy, which I'm pretty sure is we're not going to see him ever again.
Yeah.
I'm not lying to you right now. Like I'm really feeling this. Like it's like really getting me excited. It's a
Yeah.
little, like it's hitting.
I love to hear it. Yeah, it's feeling good. I would say it's feeling very.
Okay. So it's a little awkward to watch. So looking up their names, this is Chelsea and Kwame. And Chelsea noticed that Micah also liked Kwame. Chelsea was like, I don't know. I don't feel good about the fact that Kwame is liking multiple people here. And I'm zeroing in on one person. So I'm going to really go for it. So she really commits here. And we're wondering how he's going to respond. And he's like, yeah, it's good. He's not reciprocating. So let's see how this goes. Now, I think for him, he's still in the zone where he's wondering between Micah and Chelsea. So for him, I think he just doesn't want to commit yet.
I love to hear it. Yeah, it's feeling good. I would say it's feeling very, 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 very good. I'm all about it.
Kwame.
Okay, well, now I'm confused. So maybe he did reciprocate. It didn't sound like reciprocal. It didn't sound like he was as sure as she was. But maybe he is, or he is enough. And I don't know how she received it. So maybe we'll find out.
I want to be transparent with you. I do have a very, very, very strong connection with someone else. She tends to reassure me about how much she wants to be with me. And it's going in every direction that you would want it to go as a person who wants to be cared for.
Interesting. So Kwame is telling, I'm looking up their names again, Micah, that, hey, there's this other person that I'm kind of into that's really saying that she wants to be with me. And I think by implication, I'm not really hearing that from you. So where are you at? So it sounds like he would rather be with Micah. Because, if he would rather be with Chelsea, then he'd be like, hey, sorry, just let you know. So I think he's teeing it up for her. Let's see how she takes it.
Realize like how strong your connection was for the other person, and I'm just wondering how it's escalating so much. If you do feel sure about me, it's just hard to like imagine your other connection having such a great trajectory. And like that's not to say that I want you to stop talking to people, just to say it's like hard for me to understand, I guess.
It sounds like she's saying, I thought we were both each other's number one. And I knew you were talking with other people, which is fine, but I didn't know that it was that intense for you. And so the way Micah is talking, I think, is logical. She's like, well, I thought we were number ones for each other. And now I'm hearing this other thing, which makes me wonder if you weren't as sure about me. And thus our relationship isn't as strong or as important or as much of a priority in your life as you were making it seem. Because if I was a priority, then this other individual who was confessing their love for you wouldn't affect you that much. She, of course, wants someone that is fully committed. But I don't know. But it'd be hard to answer the question, which one do you want, Chelsea or Micah? It's hard to know, right? They barely know these people. I could also see it from his side. He's thinking, well, I would like to find someone, and these two individuals I think are both possible, and one of them is very much into me, and the other person I'm not even really quite sure about. So maybe it's a better option to go with the person that's into me because I want to be with someone that's into me. And there's some rationality to that, some health to that. There's also some dysfunction into that as well, not for him, but in general, that people will not necessarily be with someone that they want to be with, but they will be with someone that wants to be with them. And they're trying to find security through neediness towards them, right? Instead of mutual dependency, mutual appreciation, mutual neediness. So it's interesting. Let's see how this goes.
So her ascension has kind of been a conundrum to me. I actually didn't think we would make it until like day 3. The one thing that just keeps popping up about her.
Is it that she validates you more than I do and reciprocates feelings more vocally?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great question. Very precise and accurate, because he's like, yeah, so it's good. Maybe for Micah, she knows that about them, or she knows about herself or something, and now she's like, oh, well, maybe I should do that. Let's see how this goes.
Something that's this big, I hope that you decide to follow your heart, not the part of your brain that tells you to take what will feel good now.
So then I'll ask you straightforward then. Do you feel like we have something that would last and that could stand the test?
It's a great conversation. There's a lot of health going on in this show thus far. I don't know what's going to happen later, but there's a lot of, I'll just say unexpected health going on, because on these shows, it often doesn't go that way. It's a very relatable conversation, honestly. Very mature, non-defensive, aware conversation. I don't know if I'm just biased because they're from Seattle or from the Pacific Northwest. Also, I have this worry that because this season doesn't, at least yet, doesn't have the Shane or the Shake or the Cole or the Barnett, we don't have those controversial, or the Jessica, we don't have those controversial figures seemingly yet, that this season won't be very interesting because to people. It won't be very popular because it doesn't have someone that you hate. Because I think it's pretty well demonstrated that for a show to be successful, you need to have someone that you hate.
Because I feel so strongly for you and I can picture our life so well, I can see a future with you. 100%, I can see a future with you.
You have me like walking on sunshine, you know?
I definitely know.
You definitely see a difference between Micah and Chelsea. Micah is a lot more reserved. Chelsea went into it, I don't know, this is just my take, my read on it. She was on a mission. So it does raise that question that's often bandied about playing hard to get. Generally speaking, this is just anecdotal, and there is research on this. It's really hard to pin down, though, because there's so many factors and variables to measure. But anecdotally, I have found that when two people are compatible and likely to work out, at least in the short term, there's really nothing the individuals can do to mess it up. In the extreme, there are examples where you might actually do something by mistake that really throws a wrench in a relationship that might have worked otherwise. But what I find is that when two people like each other, they'll give each other the benefit of the doubt. Another factor that needs to be put out there is that when people are really, really pursuing, like, say you have two people who would be compatible, and one person in the relationship at the beginning is just really desperate for some reason, or doesn't understand boundaries or something, and calls and texts and calls and texts and calls and texts, and kind of love bombing in a sense, wants to move in right away, wants to spend all their time. Whereas this person's like, well, I think we might actually be compatible, but my God, I'm constantly telling them I can't, and I don't like that feeling, and so maybe it's just better just to end it now because I'm just annoyed. It's like too much. Yeah. Could you ruin a relationship in the beginning if you did that? Yeah, absolutely. But generally speaking, people don't do that. So the idea that somehow you have to play a game, that you have to trick the person you're dating into believing that you are a catch, that you facilitate through playing hard to get, that you basically fake, because they say they text you the next day and they're like, hey, you want to hang out tonight. And you do want to hang out tonight, but you're like, oh, but I have to follow that rule on the internet and what my friends are telling me that I have to play hard to get. So you lie to them and you say, no, I'm busy, or you literally just don't text them back, you'd be like, oh, I'll just let that sit for a while. At least anecdotally, I don't think that that's a good principle to follow. Also, another thing to put out there is that for a lot of us, when we're dating, we get desperate, we get real hopeful. And there will be that, if for those of you that watch Darcy with me, she gets this way. And sometimes it's not bad advice in general to tell those individuals to take it slower, to not have so much optimism, to not count on a relationship. Like with Darcy, she'll go on one date and they'll barely talk about anything and she wants to get married. I mean, she literally will talk about wedding bells and that kind of stuff. And that is a recipe for being disappointed. It also could turn people off. It is presumptive. It's trying to force an issue way too soon. And for those people, they might benefit from helping them to slow down.
I'm so sure about you. So I'm telling you, I want to propose earlier. Are you okay?
My jaw dropped to the ground.
Okay, interesting. So I think for Micah, she is happy to hear that, but she's not exhibiting it. She definitely gives off a more reserved reactivity, which I don't know what to make of that exactly. It's part of her personality, or she's just a bit more careful. I don't know. Let's keep watching.
Oh my God. Obviously, I love to hear that, and it makes me feel so good. I want to know why you feel like that.
I've just been smitten for a really.
It's a really great question. It's important to ask. In fact, I would imagine all of us could do well and probably want to ask, but don't know if it's okay to ask our partners or our friends, why are you with me? Why do you like me? There's a pretty good chance that the people that you love and you like have not heard from you exactly why you love and or like them. Now, it might be hard to put into words, right? I've had to put into words or have tried to put into words my love for my wife, and I'm not a poet, so I don't know how to put it into words. There are words I can say, but they're not going to encapsulate it. Some people will have very simplistic answers to that, just like, well, you're just my person. Okay, and that can be a big thing. My wife actually says things along those lines. I don't think she would consider herself a poet either. When we have these kinds of moments, she will say things that will really stick with me because they're important to me, how she feels about it. And it sounds weird and not very complicated, but it actually is. I can tell, knowing her. She'll say, well, you're my guy, or you're my husband, or something like that. And there's so much behind that, right? So you don't always have to be a poet and be descriptive.
Good. I want to know why you feel like that.
I've just been smitten for a really long time. I say really long, it's fucking 6 days. Wow.
Okay, so we're learning 6 days. And of course, it's very concentrated 6 days. It's more like 6 weeks or 6 months in some ways because they're isolated from the internet and other people, and they spend a lot of really quality time, very intimate conversations. So there's a lot of acceleration to the dating process. So it's not analogous to the outside world necessarily. But it would be fine for him to ask the same question. It's like, okay, well, I've answered to you my answer to this, why am I basically at the top of your list? What do you like about me? What do you see in our potential?
Feels like a long time.
Yeah. Everything that you want and everything that you are embodying, those things are what I always envisioned. I find myself just waiting all day just to talk to you.
Okay, so everyone can have their own gauge, but if I were her and I heard that from him, that would be very encouraging. Someone that is infatuated with me, someone that thinks about me often, that is a sign of love. It could be a sign of other things as well, but that is at least one of the mainstream American, because that's where I come from, and that's where my concept of love emerges from. My concept of relationships emerge from mainstream American culture, and it's within that, at least on the healthy side of it, in my opinion, that notion that you think a lot about, like with my wife, for example, when answer this question for yourself. when something really important happens in your life, like you almost get in a car accident or you get a promotion, who are the first people that you think about telling? Who's the first person or who's the first few people that you think about telling? That says a lot about your feelings about that person, the priority you have towards them, the support that you get from that person. It's possible that your partner, your spouse, is not even in that top 3 list of people because you don't think that your partner will care or will relate or give a good response or something, or they'll just be blank or they'll be unavailable or they won't really listen or appreciate the situation. It's something to think about. Is that a reason to get divorced or break up? No, it could be, but it is something to think about. Another thing to think about is if you don't have an answer to that question, like you don't have anyone that you feel like you could reach out to. A thing that I heard on self-help radio, I believe, in the 90s or the early aughts, has always stuck with me. And it was, we should all have at least 3 people that we can talk to about anything at any time. Meaning that if we're sad or we're going through something very difficult or we're elated that we got a promotion, there should be 3 people in your life that you can say everything truthfully, vulnerability-wise to in that moment. Now, they might not be available right then and there, but 3 people that you can talk to pretty quickly within a reasonable amount of time that you can just let it all out. You can talk about all your hopes and dreams and all the downsides, and you know that you're not going to be judged. You know that they're going to care about you. Maybe they'll have some criticism, but they will take care of you. They'll listen. They'll appreciate you. They'll take the time to listen. They'll take the time to respond to you. All of us should have 3 people. So right now, pause the video, think about, write down how many people that you could do. You're depressed. You're scared. You have a health scare. You have a problem in your marriage. You hate your job. You are having some self-esteem issues. Now, one of those people could be your therapist. That's a viable individual there. Could be your spouse. Hopefully it's your spouse. Could be your best friend. Could be your parents or something. Just make a list. If you have that list, 1, that's great, and value that. Cultivate those relationships. Make sure that those are strong, and maybe even tell those people, hey, I made a list. This random YouTuber told me to make a list, and you're on that list, communicating to that person that how important it is. They'll probably appreciate that and might actually amp up that relationship. I do that in my relationships. There are people that I will say that to, and I think what happens is we will do that for each other, and then when they reach out to me randomly with some stress at work or something, I say, oh, actually, I'm not just one of 10 people that they're texting. I might be the only person they're texting. So I need to make sure that I pay attention to them, and I want to cultivate that activity between us people. So that's one thing, is to be more intentional with it. The other thing is if you don't have 3 people or you don't have anyone on that list, then set out to cultivate that. It's hard, but it's important and you deserve it. And it takes time. Some people will come to therapy. That's all we'll talk about basically is this. It's not something that you just snap your fingers about. And there's all these tips online of like, how do you meet people? How do you cultivate? It's a campaign that you go on. The people in my life that I have cultivated, I'm 52 years old. I've had 52 years of basically daily cultivation, or at least, to some extent, weekly cultivation of this goal. And I don't have that many people that are in that category. And those people, I've had to really work hard. And we've had our ups and downs. Me and those people, my best friends, me and my wife, have had our ups and downs. And it's not without its difficulty. And there's been, times like Umberto on the podcast, co-host, and Bob, for that matter, on the podcast, best friends of mine. We reach out to each, they're on my list. And we've had periods of time over the years where we've had a falling out or a drifting apart a little bit or something like that. So I had to reinvigorate the relationship. It's hard. It takes time, and you set out on a goal. And so if you are in that category, you have no one, and you're trying to build it, it could be 5-10 years before you even have 1 or 2 people that you can really depend on. It's not something that you can just do overnight. It might be, but not usually. I say that because it's something they have to constantly pay attention to. The other issue is that if you are having kids and you have a full-time job, and sometimes your friends will fall by the wayside. And a big predictor scientifically of well-being and of meaning in life and happiness is having friends. A lot of adults are just like, oh, who has time for friends? I've got kids, I've got my partner, I've got my work. Friends are for young people, and that's just not true. We need friends and people to depend on throughout our lives. One of the biggest predictors of happiness is having a rich friendship experience in life, ongoing experience with people. It's important. The other thing to remember is that when you have a conflict with a friend, to figure out a way to work it out. A lot of people will just be like, well, I'm going to draw a boundary with the person because they annoy me, and then that leads to distance, and then you have no friends. The closer you get to someone, the more they're going to annoy you. It's just the way that it goes. The more you're going to see their dark side, and you have to deal with that. It doesn't mean you have to deal with it. It just means that if you're going to have friendships that are deep, you're going to have to deal with their annoying side. If someone is sufficiently annoying, maybe it is time to draw a boundary. I don't know. But it's important to recognize that. So the reason why I say that to people is like, people will set out for a few weeks trying to cultivate it, and they'll be like, see, it's not working, and then they give up. And I say, well, in the best of circumstances, it wouldn't have worked in that span of time anyway. It takes years and years and years. And it's not the way that it looks on Instagram is everyone's friends and it's easy. It's never easy. It's never easy to find someone, as evidenced by the fact that you have plenty of really famous, attractive, well-known people that a lot of people would really want to be their friend, and they don't have any friends. They're lonely. It's hard. It's not easy. And when we look online and when we look around in the world, it just looks like everyone is friends, and it looks easy. It's not easy. Relationships are not easy. It's hard work. There are some aptitudes. Some people are better at it than others, extroverted or not shy, or, they're just have an ability to make things more interesting in a conversation. That certainly can help, but it doesn't mean that you need to have those qualities in order to have friends. Certainly you can find your people. So anyway, think about that and value that.
I think the reason why I've been holding back is because the other person that I'm talking to has been like a slow burn, and it's not even on our level at all.
Okay, I'm gonna look at my notes here. I think she's talking about Paul, right? The environmental scientist guy. So I think that's who she's referring to. So she's saying that this other individual is a slow burn. I bet you what she's saying, or what she's contemplating, is that our relationship is moving very fast in terms of commitment and talk of getting married, primarily because you're introducing that. And I'm definitely into you. But this other one, I feel like maybe there's a more fundamental connection, and he's not as explicitly pursuing me and explicitly talking about getting married. But I don't know, I'm starting to wonder if him and I are more compatible deep down in a more real fundamental way. I don't know. I'm reading into it a lot, but let's keep watching.
I mean, it's not comparable. And my fear would be later on, there's still what ifs because I didn't uncover every stone. And you don't deserve to not have like your person know without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see how Kwame reacts to this. Micah, she is now saying she wants to make sure. It's only 6 days. That she has a few more days left, and wants to make sure that when she says yes to the proposal, that it's without a doubt that he's the one. So, it's logical. If I had a friend that was on this show and they were at the end of this pod zone and somehow they contacted me and they're just like, oh, I think I'm totally in love with someone. I think it's the one. And, they proposed and I don't know if I should say yes or no. I would suggest to the person that they just say, hey, I want to say yes, but I'm not ready. I want to hang out more and in person. And so how about we just not go on the rest of the show? I'm guessing that happens sometimes, or at least informally, right? And let's just get booted off the show and let's just start dating. And if after a few months of us being in person, we're still totally, because I'm totally on board. I want to say yes, but I just feel like it would be too soon to say that for both of us, really. I'm pretty sure things are going to work out, but I just, I want to make sure. That's what I would tell someone. So, I think she's being perfectly healthy and reasonable in this moment.
Because I think that you're just like a really incredible person and you deserve everything.
Now, for him, let's see how he reacts. On one hand, it'd be normal that he'd be sad, hurt, because he just laid it all out there. And it's given how he was swayed by Chelsea's pointed pursuing of him, he might need that level of pursuing. He's also, I think now, maybe for the first time hearing that she's experiencing a slow burn with another guy, which of course is maybe going to tweak him a little bit.
Who am I to do that? Like if I'm doing that now, in the preliminary stages of our relationship, who am I gonna be telling you to cut out of your life at any point, you know?
That's like such a great point, actually. Like, I want this to stay between us, but like I really am like falling for you. And like I haven't said that to anyone else.
Okay, so I'm guessing that's very reassuring to him. And so if that's true, it just sounds like it is for her, then it's good that she was able to say that. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.